Yields back. The chair recognizes Mr. Carter for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm down here in timeout. Thank y'all for being here. This is extremely important. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this hearing. All of these bills are extremely important. As has been pointed out during this hearing, there are over 30 million of our fellow Americans who suffer from rare diseases and need our help. And the vast majority of those 30 million don't have any cures or any effective treatments. And that's one of the reasons why we are doing the work that we're doing in this committee, because we want to address that. And it's important that we have legislation that will bring our healthcare system into the 21st century so that we can help many of these with rare diseases get the treatments that they need. I recently introduced the FDA Modernization 3.0 Act. That would establish a program at the FDA to qualify preclinical testing methods that will reduce or replace the use of animal models. It builds on FDA Modernization Act 2.0. 2.0 was the first step. This was the next step. And what we're trying to do, of course, is just to give incentives or to really make sure that the pharmaceutical manufacturers can use the animal models and make sure that we are doing investigational drugs in the patients in the clinic. As a pharmacist, I know how important it is to make sure that we're doing this. I've seen so many drugs that went on the market and then were pulled off in a short time after, and that's the kind of thing we're trying to guard against. Dr. Flott, let me ask you, before investigational drugs reach the patients in your clinic, they must go through preclinical safety trials. I know that. Do you agree that the FDA should help foster the development and acceptance of preclinical non-animal testing methods, particularly when it comes to evaluating the safety of the therapies you spoke about in your testimony?
As I mentioned earlier, it is a complex question because new platform technologies clearly will need some animal testing because the cell models don't recapitulate every organ of the body that may be affected by a toxicity. But I do think that there are indications where it's either a small increment on an existing treatment or using the same platform where substitution of non-animal models, particularly cell culture models, iPS cells, and the like that have actual patient mutations, can and should be used.
Can you share with us your observations about how non-animal testing methods can better leverage and speed up the development of life-saving drugs?
Well, one example I know that's been well described is that in cystic fibrosis, the CFTR modulators that were referred to earlier were initially each approved, so that would include the current standard of care Trikafta and some of the earlier predecessors. They were initially each approved for a relatively small range of mutations in the gene. Expansion of that label in many cases has been done with some form of cell model that has the mutation, the additional mutations, or has are examples from patients with other mutations. So in that case, it did not really require to get a new indication going all the way back to preclinical animal testing. There are also examples where unanticipated toxicities come about that preclinical animal testing could help with, but in some of those cases, the animal testing did not accurately predict the end organ toxicity. So it is a complex regulatory science.
Understood, understood. Now, I want to shift gears real quick, and one of the things that we're trying to do in this Congress, and our chair has been a very strong advocate of this, is to address PBM reforms, particularly as it relates to spread pricing, as it relates to transparency, and delinking the price of the drug from the profits that the PBMs are able to garner. Dr. Chen, can you describe how government price controls not only destroy innovation, but also how it'll make it harder for patients to access medicines when PBMs can still prefer higher priced drugs to lower priced drugs?
So in addition to the incentives manufacturers face from that are introduced by market revenue. The challenge here with PBMs it affects insurer formulary coverage, step therapy, prior authorization that can limit a patient's ability to access generics and biosimilar entrants that come onto the market.
Great, great. Again, thank all of you for being here. This is extremely important, particularly those 30 million Americans who suffer from rare diseases. So thank y'all, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back, and the chair recognizes the ranking member, Mr. Pallone, for 5 minutes.